Hello everyone. Welcome back to our discussion on theories of organic evolution. In the last sessions, we discussed about the theory of Lamarck, which is the Lamarckism, and also we discussed about the theory which was proposed against the Lamarckism, which is called as the jump blossom theory, which is proposed by or which was put forward by August Weismann to or against the particular theory which is called as Lamarckism, or to prove Lamarckism, or the theory of the inheritance of acquired characters is wrong. After that, we are moving on to the celebrated theory of evolution, the theory of natural selection by Darwin and Wallace. So, to begin with, I begin this topic by the caricatures which was drawn to humiliate Charles Darwin, which appeared in the newspapers during 1871 and 74. So these caricatures went viral during the time in newspapers and magazine, and also they were the subject for many advertisements for many products, etc. So these pictures were drawn to humiliate Darwin because he proposed a theory which was against all the existing rules or all existing orders or all existing beliefs that everything was created by God. He proposed a theory which is called as a theory of natural selection, which says that species evolve, and that is by the influence of nature. But the earlier theories or the earlier beliefs, which is called as a special creation, said that it is God that created every organism, and all species are constant, they do not change. So, this particular theory, which was proposed by Darwin and Wallace, was a theory which broke all the concepts or all the beliefs that existed during the time. As a result, everybody, many of these celebrated scientists, the church, and the people was against this particular theory, and their protest against the theory was shown by using such caricatures. And these are the two caricatures. In this, you can see that a caricature which depicts Darwin as an ape with the head of a human, which is Darwin himself. And you can see in this that because he said that our ancestors are monkeys, and this is a depiction where Darwin is showing a mirror to a monkey, which depicts that you and I are same. So there are also other caricatures which appeared during the time. Here you can see, as I said, this is an advertisement for an oil, which is an gargling oil, which says that this is for man and also for beast. So this takes its root from this particular humiliating Darwin based on his theory. And here also you can see that this came in the newspaper in England, and it you can see that Darwin is depicted as a monkey, and what he explained as a tree of life is shown here as he is hanging from the tree. So here also it is another humiliating caricature to Darwin, where an ape is asking Darwin that this man is also claiming that he comes in my pedigree, or he is one of my descendants, and he is crying. So these are the backdrops or the background of this particular theory, or what happened when such a theory was proposed during the time, or when such a groundbreaking theory was proposed, what was the reactions of the world during that particular period. So actually it was proposed by, it is said that it is proposed or it is proposed by Darwin and Wallace, but all the humiliation and all the caricatures was against Darwin, or it was centered towards Darwin, who first proposed this particular theory, which is called as the theory of natural selection. So, with this, we are moving on to discussing this particular theory, which is called as the theory of natural selection. So we are going to discuss this particular theory, which is called as the theory of natural selection. By first, we'll see what are the historical background, or how these two, both Darwin and Wallace, how they came to this particular theory. Because both Darwin and Wallace, they were not evolutionary scientists, or they were not scientists at all. They both were naturalists, and it was out of what you can say that it was a uh, it came to them actually as naturalists. What they were doing is that usually in those days, naturalists, what they do is that they collect animals, or stuff them, uh, or they preserve them, like butterflies, small animals, birds, etc. And either they go, or they give the new names or the taxonomic nomenclatures for the new one, and the beautiful specimens, they sell it, and that is how they earn their living. They sell that to museums and also specimen collectors, and also big palaces, etc., for decorative purposes, etc., which will be sold, all the stuffed specimens, etc. That is how naturalists in those days, they earned their living. So both Darwin and Wallace, they were naturalists, and they didn't do such or do such experiments, or they didn't do something to prove evolution. Both of them, both Darwin and Wallace, it was an accidental discovery, or it was by accident both of them came up to such conclusion of how species could have evolved. So, to discuss this, what we are going to do is we'll discuss this on the basis of, or I will be discussing first the history, or as I said, how they came or ended up in this theory, which will be based on a documentary. I will first discuss the documentary, which will lay out the background of this particular theory. And after that, in the next session or in the next video, we'll be discussing the theoretical part of this particular. Theory, which is called as the theory of natural selection. So this particular slide represents uh, the medal, which was gold medal, which was given to Wallace in 1908 or 1908 for the discovery of the theory of the evolution by natural selection. And this was given to honor his independent discovery of evolution by natural selection, and it was awarded to Wallace. And it is an important medal, as it is possible for a biologist to receive in Britain at that time. And this included, and the speciality of the award is that you can see that in the award, both the sides of that particular award is shown here. The award contained included Darwin and Wallace in the Linnaean Gold Medals, which was awarded by the Linnean Society of London, uh, and Darwin and the Royal Medals of the Royal Society. So this is a Britain's premier scientific body and the Order of Merit. That means this is an award which is given to or the greatest award given in Great Britain for a civilian. So of this, Darwin and Wallace Medal is special in that both because it features a portrait of Wallace, and it was created to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the reading of the Darwin Wallace paper on natural selection, which had taken place at the Linnean Society at 1st July 1858. So in 1858, both of them proposed the theory of natural selection, and after that, we saw the caricatures. It went around the world for about 10 to 15 years, and after its recognition, this award was given by the society, and it was after the death of Darwin, and it was awarded to Wallace to commemorate the 50th anniversary of their reading of the theory in the society. So, as I said, we'll be discussing this particular theory, or the historical background of this particular theory, on the basis of this particular documentary, which was called as the Origin of Species. So, we'll discuss how they came or how they ended up in this particular theory. After that, we'll study what the theory actually is. So this is the documentary, and the YouTube link is also provided here. The origin of species, the making of a theory. So this particular documentary, it begins by portraying a young man who is sitting in a ship, and it says that the year is 1852, and it is in the Eastern Atlantic Ocean. So you can see a young man who is uh, um, inscribing, or who is writing down the notes of his specimens who he has collected, and he is preserving it or keeping it in intact in boxes, etc. So as I said, this young man is none other than our Wallace, and he is in a ship where, as a naturalist, as I said, after his long 4 years in the Amazons, of after collecting the specimens from the Amazon, he is on his way back to England, where he is observing all the collected specimens, inscribing the notes about the specimens, and preserving them so that he can sell them uh, and earn his living when he is back home. And what happened is a sad thing. The ship is caught in fire, and you can see that everything inside the ship, or the entire ship, is burned off, and the people inside the ship, including Wallace, they managed somehow to escape in a lifeboat, and after 10 days in the lifeboat, they are saved by, or they were saved by a passenger ship, and they returned back to England. So what happened in this shipwreck was that thousands of specimens that Wallace stored for selling to museums and stores, and the records of animals in the different parts of South America, etc., uh, were uh, were uh, were eaten up by the fire, or the shipwreck, and this particular specimens and his notes contain the answer for the question that stimulated the great scientists of the time, that is, where do species come from. So he had everything. He didn't come up with a theory or something, but what he had found, or what the notes which he had inscribed, might have contained the answer for the question that most of the scientists during that particular time were uh, were to answer about. And the question is nothing but, where do species come from? So, but everything was lost in that particular fire or this shipwreck. And the epic answer for this particular question, the same question, that is, where do species come from? And we are going to see the epic adventures of uh, two experts, or two young men who found out the answer for this question, that independently found the answer for the question, that is, where do species come from? And now we are moving on to back in the timeline. So we are going back to 1832. So now in the documentary, we are going to see two other journeys, or two other people and their important journeys, that answered the question of where do species come from. So going back to 20 years, from 1952 to 1932, here comes the historical, or the famous ship, which you see in this particular slide, HMS Beagle. So in HMS Beagle, you can see Darwin in 1832, where 22-year-old Darwin, he began his journey in the particular ship, which is called as HMS Beagle. The British naturalist Darwin answered the origin of species in or he answered this particular question, but he dared to share it with only few of his colleagues, and this was answered by Darwin 20 years before the shipwreck which happened to Wallace. That means Darwin had already found the answer for this question by his journey in, or because of his journey in HMS Beagle. But he dared to answer, or dared to share this particular theory, or the particular answer for that question to the public, because he feared that it might destroy him. and he shared it only with few of his friends, and he didn't share it with the world during that particular time. So Darwin, before his voyage in the HMS Beagle, he was or he believed, as the other people in Europe, he also believed in special creation. That is, all the organism was specially created by God, and they were constant, and they didn't have any changes. So changes do not incorporate in any of the species because God created them as such, and they remain constant. And that is what is called as a special creation theory. And Darwin, during that particular time, he was also a believer of this special creation theory. And it is during his or in 1832, when he was 22 years old, he got a chance to go, or he got a surprising offer uh, to jump or to voyage in the British Navy vessel, which is HMS Beagle. He jumped at this chance to voyage around the world in the British Navy vessel, which is HMS Beagle, where HMS stands for his or her majesty ship, because it was a ship which was sent uh, by the king, or the prince or the princess uh, who ruled Britain, and it was sent for surveys, for mapping their areas, and also for collecting, or scientists or the such naturalists were also sent in the ship for collection, etc. They also will be moving. Actually, this is a navy vessel which went around the world to conquer different colonies, to land up in different colonies, which was under the rule of the Queen of Britain. So this Darwin was chosen in to travel in HMS Beagle, not because of his resume; it was because of his pedigree. So he would be because he was considered to be a cheerful upper class company for the captain, uh, and voyaging in a British Navy vessel was not an easy task, because he was a replacement for the previous captain, and the previous captain was shot dead during the last voyage. So, to remind you that HMS Beagle, this particular ship, uh, uh, have done something about four voyages in continuous years, and Darwin was lucky enough to go to or roam around the world in this particular ship his during the ship's second voyage. And after that also the ship had gone for voyages in three, and so the captain of the ship, the second captain of the ship in the first journey, he was shot dead, because it's a navy vessel, and as I said, it moves to colonies to conquer, etc., etc. And as a result, uh, Darwin was chosen as a replacement for that particular captain, as a company for the other captain in the ship. And because of he belonged to an upper class, he was chosen for as a company for the now captain in the ship. So Darwin was an amateur naturalist and had a chance to see and collect all over the world in HMS Beagle. So in 1932, after they started their journey, first they landed on in Argentina, and in Argentina, he found, or he saw, as you can see in this particular diagram, he saw such armadillos in that particular region. And as an amateur naturalist, he had curiosity in collecting animals. He was curious in collecting beautiful flowers, beautiful plants, etc. So he was just a casual naturalist, or an amateur naturalist, who was collecting whatever he got. So some structures or some fossils that he got from this particular place enlightened his mind, or it triggered his mind with some questions, and that is what is shown here. So when he collected the fossils, or where he got some fossils of uh, shells of such organisms which are referred to as or kleptodon, uh, which is an organism which existed in the past, which is, as you see here, this is kleptodon, which is a giant of the present day armadillo. And he got a piece of this kleptodon shell. And the question that was in the minds of Darwin was that why such an enlarged precursor existed for a present small day armadillo. So, according to special creation theory, God created the organism as such and they are constant. And you should not see a change in the species because species are constant, they will not change. And what Darwin found here was that he found fossils, or not only the fossils of this kleptodon and armadillo, which is shown in this particular picture, he also got many other fossils which represented giants of the existing animals, which were huge giants of the existing animals. And that is the first question that went to the mind of Darwin when he was in Argentina during the early years of his voyage in HMS Beagle. So he found many giant fossils compared to the living representatives. But Darwin didn't understand why the fossils are large when we were see today, which are miniature representatives. So he didn't actually understand why there are extra large fossils when their miniatures existed today. So if miniatures are found today, miniatures should also be being represented in the fossil. Or what can be said is that if giants are seen in the fossil, giants also should exist now. So where are these giants and why the giants have changed into this miniature? So that was the question that came to the minds of Darwin with the help or because of these fossils. And after long years around the world, as you can see in this particular diagram, this is the route map of HMS Beagle, His or Her Majesty's ship, which is the Royal Navy ship. So it started from here, Britain. You can see this as the blue line is the journey, or the red line is the journey when they went out. So here they came. So here they went on to different places, touching different areas of South America, and they move on to went around the world. They went on to the parts of Australia, and coming back, they in 1835 he ended up in this island, which is seen here, which is called as the Galapagos Islands. So it was in their return journey, they landed in those islands, which was called as the Galapagos Islands, and it was in 1835. So this is the route map of the journey. So in 1835, HMS Beagle, it reached the Galapagos Island in September. So it was a remote Spanish colony, which is the Galapagos Island. They were all volcanic islands, and Darwin described, because he was a naturalist, he used to describe or scribble the notes on every places which he visited, every animals which he saw, every plants he saw there, etc. Because everything was a new knowledge to the world. Because only such ships or such vessels would go around the world collecting the data. So whatever data is or being brought about or written by such naturalists was taken as a new concept or a new idea or a new knowledge to the world about the unseen places. So, such a place was Galapagos, and he also wrote about the Galapagos. And what he described Galapagos was that he described Galapagos as if hell had a garden, it would be like this, or it would be like Galapagos. It was because the other places that Darwin visited was beautiful places with lush green plants and variety of diverse animals, diverse birds, etc. But this particular group of islands, it is something a group of 10 to 15 islands, which is collectively referred to as the Galapagos Islands. So these islands was completely barren because they were of volcanic origin. And this was barren island in the sense that there was no plants at all. Plants or the plant community was dominated by xerophytes, and the number of animals was very less. It was mainly represented by reptiles like giant tortoises, then iguanas, then some birds, which is now referred to as Darwin's finches, etc. So the animal, the diversity and also the plant diversity was very poor in this particular region, which is called as the Galapagos. And wherever you see in Galapagos, you can see black rocks because it is of volcanic origin. We can see entirely this black stones without much animals, etc. And that is why Darwin described this particular land, the Galapagos Island, which actually turned Darwin into a world famous personality. This land, but he described this land as the Garden of Hell. So, in 26 years, or a 26 year as a 26-year-old naturalist or collector, he didn't know what he was collecting. So every visiting place, Darwin continued to collect whatever uh, whatever he saw there, the shells of tortoises, then the different kinds of birds in the different Galapagos islands, etc. So everything was collected, and he wrote notes on everything which he saw there. And they were on their way back to their homeland, Britain. And in 1837, on their way back, when he was uh, reviewing all the materials that he was collected or he had collected all throughout the journey, some of the specimens were or some of the specimens which he collected was raising many questions, or they were creating trouble in Darwin's minds. And the questions was that in Galapagos he got he saw tortoises. So as I said, it is a group of something around 10 to 15 islands, and each island had its own type of tortoise, giant tortoise, its own type of the particular bird, and its own type of other reptiles and plants. Mainly there were xerophytes, and the xerophytes also were different. So what the questions that again came to Darwin was that actually what in normal scenario what is expected is that the animals in the nearby areas will be more or less like the same. But this was entirely different. That is, the animals in the nearby islands was distinct. As you see in this particular pictures, the shells of tortoises. So these are two giant tortoises in two islands of Galapagos, two closer islands of or neighboring islands of Galapagos, and you can see the difference. This is having a flat shell, and also the pattern is different. This is having a convex type of shell. So, and the Spaniards, which was present in the Galapagos Island because it was a Spanish colony, they could identify by looking at the shell of the tortoise from which island this tortoise came from. So every island had its own type of tortoise and its own type of bird. As you can see here, these birds they are of the same size as you see here. You can see this particular bird. The difference is it is having, or how you identify this bird is it is having a brown patch on his breast. So here the brown patch is absent, and for that it is having a black band in its eyes. In this case, we can see that it is having a very clear or an unmarked breast region. So, such differences or such changes, why uh, the animals in nearby areas differ. So, similar but distinct creatures lived in nearby Galapagos Islands. And uh, Darwin could identify two possibility for this. The first possibility or the first answer for the question is that is the question is nothing but why distinct creatures or distinct animal lived in nearby islands. And two possibilities came to Darwin's mind. The first possibility was that If special creation theory was right, God made different species for each island. The second species is that, the second possibility is that the one or that is this is the possibility that is going to transform the whole world and our understanding to the origin of species. And the possibility is that perhaps one species might have come from the mainland and then changed in different islands, and according to the situations in different islands, because every, as I said, every island is having its own plant community, etc., and depending upon such changes or environmental factors, the species might have changed itself. So the Galapagos animals was raising a radical idea, and the radical idea that Galapagos Islands was raising on in Darwin's mind was that species might change. So this particular idea that species might change was because of these facts. That is, if you see, these are the different Galapagos Islands in the map, and you can see three different birds. They are of nearby islands which were entirely different. And Darwin suggested that one bird from the mainland, or some birds from the mainland, might have migrated and migrated to different islands in that particular Galapagos. And depending upon the plant community, because the food availability or the food which is available to these birds in different islands were different. So after generations and generations, Darwin proposed that after many generations, this particular birds might have adapted to that particular nature or particular environment. As a result, they were not similar to the ones which reached the islands many years back. That means species are changing according to the environment, or nature is something, or nature plays its role in changing species. So this is the idea which was proposed by Darwin, and it is, this tree of life is just mere drawing, depending upon, or it is a conclusive, or it is not something which is a calculated tree or something. It is just a depiction of what might have happened if an ancestral animal came to a particular island and it has diversified. So this particular proposal was made by Darwin in 1937 or 38, after his return, or during his return to his country, Britain. But as we said in the beginning, this was kept as a secret by Darwin because he really feared the world, because he knew that it would destroy him, because he was just an amateur naturalist during the time when he was in the voyage. He was not famous. As a result, if he would have come up with something like this in that particular time, there's no doubt he would have been destroyed, or rather he would have been just killed by a mad mob who just believed in what the other what the church or what the other people said. So this is the theory, or this is the history, not the theory. This is the history of the journey of uh, the HMS Beagle and Darwin, and how he ended up in this particular uh, theory or particular topic, which is something which is called as the species might change, and that is what is called as evolution. So, in the next part, we are going to see the second journey. So, as we begin our discussion, we said we will be discussing about the epic journeys of two famous naturalists. So, one is this during 1832 to 1837, which was done by Darwin, which answered the question, where do species come from and whether species change? And in the next session, we are going to see the second journey, which was made by the second uh, naturalist, Wallace. So we'll see that in the next session. Thanks for hearing.